All right, everyone. Next up, we have Jared Hester, and he's going to talk about the state of the F# open source ecosystem, including some tools for sort of interactive development environments, working with Electron and that kind of stuff. So take it away.
Okay. So I'm going to mention a bunch of different projects that are not going to show up in my slides, but they're all in this README of my talk. It's on GitHub right now. You can just look it up, and it's going to be easier for me to just go through everything if I can just talk. All right. So, oh, did I hit the wrong one? I did the same thing he did. Whoops. Sorry about that. Cool. So that's my GitHub account. You can find this presentation there. And just a quick question to all of you. Is there anyone here that likes working in Visual Studio? I'm assuming 3 of you? You guys are crazy. I assume most of you can't work in it because you're on Linux or OS X, and you are happy that you are not working in it. So I'm one of the maintainers of Visual F# Power Tools, and it's not so great. But I'm also a maintainer of Ionide, which is how I'm trying to kill my other maintenance job. I'm also a maintainer of the F# control.reactive library. It's a set of RX wrappers to make it friendly for F#, and I've also become a decent contributor to Packet and Fake, which are 2 packages you're going to hear more about in a little bit. So what is Ionide? It's a set of packages for both the Atom text editor and the VS Code text editor to improve the experience of working in F#. Because it's great to write scripts in F#. You can do a lot with them. It's really powerful. It's almost like Python, but with types, and that's kind of fantastic. But if you have to use Visual Studio to do this, it's okay, I'm gonna open Visual Studio. I need a new project and a solution, and it takes about 5 minutes before I even have a script file open, and this is ridiculous. It's there is this giant block of code, right? The Visual Studio code base is larger than that of the Large Hadron Collider. It's just absolute insanity to write one script. So Ionide is gonna help get everyone through that. So the first basic feature you have to add is syntax highlighting, and it's it's pretty, but it's not super important. Who really cares about that? But we also have added IntelliSense tooltips to your code. So mouse over it, you can get type information for it. Sorry, brain fart. We've also added Autocomplete, which is something you'd think they would have gotten right in Visual Studio, but for some reason they've decided to do exact string matching instead of edit distance. So we decided to go with the edit distance approach instead. That way, if you type array with a lowercase a, you can actually open the array module. Another little feature that I added just to annoy the people who hate Unicode is Glyph Completion. So, if you have to remember the long Unicode strings for all these glyphs, it's a huge pain in the butt. So instead, we have aliases for all of them. So you just start typing the names up lambda, and then you can start to put in all these glyphs. And these are valid for function names in F#. So if you look at my repos, you will find this in some places. And then, of course, one of the essential parts of, working in these wonderful functional programming languages is having a REPL. So we've added REPL support into FSI, into Ionide with FSI. So you can just, you can send an entire file, you can send a selection, you can send an individual line.
emphasize there?
Oh, F# interactive. Yeah, oh, if you have a question, interrupt me. I like being interrupted. And Packet is, like if you start to develop with F#, Packet is going to become, it's going to be one of the most essential tools that you use because the standard package manager for .NET is NuGet, and NuGet is a disaster. It is one of the most unpleasant things that you could ever work with. For some reason, they decided it makes more sense to have like the version numbers of packages in the names of the directories. So if you upgrade a package, it's going to break your version control, and it does not resolve transitive dependencies well, and it's a horrible mess. And Packet just like it gets rid of all of those problems, and it makes it really easy to deal with your dependencies. So a great thing about that is, like, oh, cycle back. Okay. So you do Packet init, gets you started. You get a nice little output telling you that everything worked the way it was supposed to. Then you can do Packet add NuGet package, and you can start searching, and it will give you output of like the proper packages on NuGet, which is something that they don't have in Visual Studio, which like I don't understand. Like this is the most basic thing that you want, and they just don't do it. We also have support for Fake, which is the F# version of Make. It's a DSL for build tasks. And what we do with Ionide is we read these script files and we detect your different build targets. So when you do fake build, it'll pop up your different targets inside of the editor, and then you can just pick the one you want, run it, and you get the build output in a nice little pop-up inside the editor. Now, working with Fake can be kind of a pain because there are like all these different like targets you have to remember, and I've written like tons and tons of these build scripts, and I can't remember them most of the time. So we've added code snippets to give you like scaffolding for all the most basic parts of writing your build script. So we're trying to make it like as easy as possible for you to get into working with F# without a ton of pain. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to get away from the MS Build project system yet, which is like a giant hulking mess of XML, and it's confusing to work with. You can't get proper IntelliSense or like the kind of type information you want about your code without having a project file. But we do have a generator for you that will set up your solutions, add new projects to it, and once you have them like inside your file tree, it'll detect them, and you'll get, you know, code completion, IntelliSense, all of that good stuff. So Ionide is written in F#, which may sound a little weird because, you know, these are editor extensions for Atom and VS Code, and like those are Electron, so that means it should be in JavaScript. But luckily, there's FunScript, which is a transpiler from F# into JavaScript. So, you know, we write all the code in F# and then just transpile it. Because the only reason I was actually able to get into this project was because, like, I saw that it was in F#. Like, oh, I could do something with this because, like, I don't know JavaScript that well. I really don't want to know JavaScript that well. But, you know, because I could dog through this, like, it was easy for me to get into this project. So this is all you need to do to compile like a piece of F# into JavaScript using FunScript. It's just like reflected definition at the top. That's all you need. And then FunScript uses it uses reflection to transpile into JavaScript. So there are a lot of great libraries and packages in the F# ecosystem, and like this presentation is being done all with like custom F# packages. So F#.formatting, like when you like this little definition was generated with it, and you actually get IntelliSense tooltips inside the presentation. So F#.formatting is great. Suave is a web server that it's a really simple web server that you can like host a presentation with. So, you know, when I was working on this presentation, I would host it with Suave, and I would see it update automatically in the browser. And FS Reveal is the library I use to make this presentation. So we can take a quick look at the actual build script. So all the slides are written in a markdown file, which comes up really nicely on GitHub. And it's just that easy. You can also write these slide presentations in an FSX file if you want to have more complicated F# code. Like if you want to load a bunch of libraries and have all the proper IntelliSense for it, you just put it in FSX instead. The markdown goes in the comments instead of being a normal markdown file, but look, it's as easy as it could possibly be. So this is the, oh, there's no way anyone can see that. All right, this is the build script. This is the fake build script I use to generate that presentation. And probably the best part is this little target right here, which lets me create a new GitHub Pages branch, generate all the slides, put it onto that branch, push it onto GitHub, and that's how I have my presentation up there right now. All right. So, I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with visual F# power tools, but I really like the libraries we use inside of it to build it. So we have fsharp.view module, which is a great view model library that can be used with fsxaml, which is a library it's a type provider library that lets you pull XAML files, which are just Microsoft's custom GUI XML markup language, into the F# compiler, generate types for it, and then use that to code against the view model that you made using fsharp.view model. So that made it a lot easier for us to build all the different dialog boxes inside of Visual Studio without having tons and tons of C# boilerplate. fscheck is the F# implementation of QuickCheck, which we use for our testings. fsharplint we use for linting inside of VFPT. Phantomus is a code formatting library that is used in Ionide as well. fspickler is this great serialization library that you can make new kinds of serialization formats using pickler combinators, and it's actually pretty fast. fparsec is the F# version of Autoparsec. It's like Haskell's our big brother, and we're trying to live up to it, and we're kind of getting there. And what I think is the best part about working in F# is that the open source community is really, really great. The people are warm and welcoming. They let a super mediocre programmer like me become a maintainer of all these different projects. And there have been a lot of people who, whenever I had an issue, would be okay, let me help you out. Let me teach you how to do these different things. Or, if I submitted a bad pull request, the angry Russian maintainer would just be no, you just do it again. But I learned a lot. It was worthwhile. Oh my God, I hit the wrong button again. All right. So if you want to look at some of the different great F# projects, there is the F# community incubation space. There's just tons and tons of great projects there. You want to talk to other devs, people on Slack, Gitter all the time. I'm typically on all the time because I never sleep. And I think that there's a really interesting future for both Visual F# power tools and Ionide. We're trying to add a few more nice little features into it. Lint integration, FS Lab, which is this great data charting system that, it's just for data science and analytics. Let's just take a look at it real quick. Yeah, so it's really cool. You can use it with machine learning, plotting different stuff. There's a type provider for R in it. We want to add more code snippets so people don't waste time with that kind of stuff. Path completion inside of strings, because like, why type them out by hand? I am so sorry. I just did that again. But I think the biggest change that needs to happen in the F# tooling ecosystem is a shift from visual F# power tools to a service that can work with all the different editors across platforms. So that's like the main project that I'm starting to work on, because the way that visual F# power tools is currently designed, most of the logic is just entirely editor agnostic. There's no reason it needs to be tied into the APIs that are built into Visual Studio. There's no reason, to couple it so tightly to a bloated editor, or a bloated IDE rather. So I'm in the process of pulling it out and turning it into a service that can be connected to by all the different editors. So I want to make it so that F# mode in Emacs, that F# Vim, that the Sublime plugin, that Xamarin, Atom, VS Code, all of these different editors can plug into a unified editor agnostic service. And if, say, someone wants to make a plugin for Kate or Bracket or like any other editor, all they have to do is basically like make a shim over it that connects to the appropriate APIs for their for their specific editor, and you get all the features for free. I also am tired of re-implementing features from VFPT into Ionide, so I'm doing this instead. And so there are a bunch of different projects, links to that again, and does anyone have any questions?
Thanks for all your work on Ionide. I've got a question about build tooling in F#. So is there a tool that exists or is in development to do more of a declarative build system, something like Cabal or F# projects? Fake is really imperative, but if you wanted to have like a standard project layout, just run a command.
Well, let me see if I see this right. Do you mean the like the project definition file? Like these are my different references, and these are the source files, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, like in Haskell with Cabal, or say in Java with Maven.
Okay.
You can basically define a declarative set of dependencies, and if you follow the standard project layout, you can run a build without having to express a bunch of steps of here's how to invoke the compiler, here's how to run the tests.
Yeah.
And when I came in, I've only looked at F# a little bit, but that was the one piece where I was surprised. It seemed like MS Build, I guess, has got that XML format, but it's machine readable, right? It's not designed for humans to
so there's
manage, I don't think.
All right, so there is one project that I'm working on with one of the developers for the F# editor tools for Xamarin. It's called Zebek, and it's going to be it's based on Cargo. Pretty much. We're going to use like TOML file definitions. We want to make it so that you can use other Git repos as dependencies inside of your project. We want to make it as simple as possible, and you just pass it directly to the F# compiler, because the MS Build system is like not needed at all in terms of like communicating with the compiler and getting your code to work. I mean, the only reason we can't totally pull it out yet is because the F# compiler service, which provides the like tooltip information, it does certain kinds of like type checking, all of the it's sort of like the highest level before you start building editor tooling. That depends on the project file, but we're working on expanding it so we can use different kinds of formats, and then we can just push MS build out entirely.
And what's that called? What's that tool or that project called?
Oh, Xebec.
Xebec.
All right, yes. All right, so you got it. I don't need to open it, or why not? Is it gonna come up? Probably not. Yeah. All right, just boats. Just remember it, Xebec boat.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Just really a brief comment that you made a quip about sort of F# sort of porting over Haskell libraries, but every time I see an F# presentation, I'm also feel that in terms of of all the languages, who's leading the way in terms of all the tooling is definitely F#, and then I think Haskell is consistently going to be trying to port over and emulate all of these sort of like the really nice development experience that you can get with these sorts of tools. So thank you for sharing those with us all.
Oh yeah, well, you're welcome.
I wanted to ask, like, as I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you before about this, but like about the file ordering issue in terms of like abandoning FS project, the FS proj files. Like, what do you think the right answer is?
Well, I know that OCaml can compile, like you can use a folder, compile it, and it works out okay. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned. I really like the manual ordering of files for straight through. Yeah, so I don't want to get rid of it. I don't think Dave wants to get rid of it either. So chances are we're going to stick with it in Xebec. But I know people wanted to change or have it work like the way JavaScript builds, where you just compile or interpret a directory and have all the code work together. But I really like being able to open a repo and be like, oh, this is the file at the top. I can just read this straight through. It's almost like reading a novel. It's not like we're C# where it's just oh, let me jump from file to file to file to file. Oh, there are 2 lines in this file. That's great. Let's go to the next one.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
All right. If there aren't any other questions, we
Ran a little
will
shorter than
keep
I
things
thought.
moving along.